Hey everybody, it's Josh. When I go to think about what I'm going to do for the videos, I always have a problem. And it isn't, oh, I have nothing to talk about. It's that I have absolutely way too much to talk about. So a lot of times you will hear me skipping from subject to subject. And I apologize for that because sometimes I'm all over the place, but there's just so much that God puts in my mind. It's a way that He speaks to us that we overlook a lot of times because we are taught in a society that basically when we go to a psychologist, a good psychologist will help you get to the root of your problem. A bad psychologist, which I would argue is probably quite a few of them, they will tell you, here's your problem, here it is, without digging deep into your life, digging deep into your background and consciousness and everything like that, because it's very rarely clear cut. It's very rarely that you have something like a clear case of bipolar or schizophrenia or something like this. Or you have anxiety that's caused by mental imbalance in your brain, not some past trauma or something like this that dredges it up. Like, for example, I know my girls, when they're at school, I told them this story. So they don't like using the public restroom in school, which who does, right? But they really, really don't. Sometimes they'll call and pretend they're sick just to come home and use the bathroom. But the reason is the same exact reason that I didn't like using the restroom when I was in school. When I was in elementary school, I was in the stall and a bunch of kids started poking their heads under the bathroom and laughing at me. And this caused an anxiety for me. So every time I was in the bathroom, I would just, whether I thought about it consciously or not, I would think, oh, there's going to be little kids poking their heads under here trying to look at me while I'm using the bathroom. I believe that was in like kindergarten or first grade. We have past trauma. Now that's just a tiny example. Now I'm not saying that's a trauma. I'm saying you get attacked on the street. Maybe you get attacked by a Mexican guy or something like that. Let's just say that. And you will form a whole psychosis around that event. So you will be thinking almost every Mexican guy you see from then on is akin to the attacker. This is something that happens a lot, especially with women. You know, a woman, they're assaulted or something and they keep reliving that trauma. And really, it eats into their personal relationships. It eats into every single part of their life. You know, I have a good friend who had these kind of traumas, and what happened with her was she kept reliving that, but then she got really into drugs and alcohol because obviously that helps you escape that reality of that memory. And she would think about that, and she would hook up with guys when she was drunk or high, and she wouldn't know that she consented to hooking up with them because she was blacked out So she just kept on reliving this in her mind. And eventually the psychosis gets so bad that it's like a PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it's over and over, this replays in your mind. So I know I was thinking about bullies a lot lately. My daughter's been bullied at school. She's been bullied by someone who has had a rough life herself, and that is projected out from that girl onto my daughter. But my daughter lays awake at night thinking, everywhere she goes, there's going to be someone like this bully there, and just completely ruins her joy. It ruins not only her joy of going out and having fun with, at a pool or with other kids. It ruins her peace, because she cannot calm down, because she sits and thinks about, she doesn't even know if she's in a class with this girl this year, but she sits there in just total fear and anxiety. Like, this girl's going to be in my class and she's going to just ruin my life again. Just ruin it. And I told her, I was like, look, every time you start thinking about this girl, just think of the most funny, ridiculous thing you can. I've told her a lot about Jesus and a lot about God. It's never enough, but there's only so much a child can understand. And if you push it on them too much, you push them away from it. So I try to do it gently. I try to find the right moments in her life where I can bring that into her, using it as an example. I told her about how I used to be horrified of going out in public around people. And it was kind of like that my whole life. I just had that social anxiety, but I managed it perfectly fine through school. I'd get stomach aches and stuff, worrying about just the dumbest things. Then after school, when I got a job and when I started doing okay at the job, I started to calm down. But then when I got my disability, it came back with a vengeance. I didn't have a social life anymore. I get a couple good hours a day to maybe go walk around a little bit or go to the pool or something. And I'll always sweat real bad whenever I'm in a lot of pain, which is almost always. So I'm almost always sweating, even in the wintertime. It's embarrassing as hell. But that was just one more thing to add on to the social anxiety. And I got to the point where I didn't want to leave the house at all. My wife would be like, let's go do, this or that. And like, I'll just stay home. I'm just not going to do it. It's easier for me just to stay home and, just lose all the joy in my life, even the little bit that I could have when I was disabled, which I still am. So I just became a shut-in. So socially anxious, I just could not leave the house. Now, I did to go out into the woods or something where I knew there wasn't a lot of people. But if there was a lot of people there, oh man, that just ruined everything. But you go to a psychologist, which I went to one, and he wasn't even the psychologists don't give drugs, but he recommended that I get medication for my anxiety. And I was like, okay, that's great. I'll get that medication for the anxiety. And basically, I took it and it works for sure. It just makes you high. so you don't care. But I was so terrified, and I knew if I started relying on this, it would just be a problem. You know, that I'd gotten good at not taking too many medication for pain. You know, I kept it at the lowest dose I could of everything and just tried to find other ways to relieve the pain. But I'm telling you, a lot of doctors will just push drugs on you. And again, this is not for someone who has a legitimate, verified chemical imbalance. This is for people who, you know, you might be able to prove that you have a little bit of that imbalance. But if you have a slight case of, you know, anxiety because your brain just kind of makes you anxious a little bit, that is something that I think it's a lesson that God gives to us to overcome. Because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have understood so many other things in life. And really, if I wouldn't have had that, I was already a wild kid. And I got into way too much trouble. And it tempered me. It tempered me so I wasn't running around, you know, getting into as many fights as I could and just becoming an evil madman, really. I mean, I had to go through that because it needed to be done. As I've stated in some of my videos, God showed me the reason for my suffering, but he also showed me the fulfillment of all the things in the past that I used to think were curses. I call them fulfillment of my prophecies. They're not really prophecies, they're just explanations of why this had to be like this. Not that God owes me an explanation for anything, but he's so loving and he's so caring that he shows you this. When you open your heart to him, he reveals what needs to be revealed to you. I needed to know this stuff. I needed it so badly. Because my life was being constructed and deconstructed constantly. My identity was shifting. Everything was a work in progress. And as I said in the last video, it always is a work in progress. We all are. Once we start thinking, oh no, we got it. You hear the saying, pride comes before the fall. That's exactly it. You build yourself up, you get confident enough in yourself. And you have to have some amount of self-confidence, you do. But life is about balance. It's all about balance. And if you have that confidence because of God, and you give that credit to God, and you understand he's allowing me to have these successes, he's allowing me to accomplish these things. I'm doing it because I'm working with what he gave me. But that's just exactly what part of the process he wants you to learn. So, you know, it's always a work in progress. I just wanted to tell you guys just to be careful when you're dealing with doctors of any kind, really. Any kind of psychologists. Most of them are atheists. They despise religion. Most of them are hypocrites. They're a mess in their own life. If you find one that's good, you know, obviously that is a blessing. But I'm telling you, it is so hard to understand what makes a good psychologist or what makes a good doctor because it's always going to be, they can tell you what you want to hear. The great psychologist Carl Jung said that a large portion of his patients didn't have any kind of mental psychosis at all. No kind of mental problems at all. They had situational problems, situational depression, situational anxiety. And because we live in a culture where we put this on people, we give ourselves excuses to latch onto these things. We say, oh, well, it's okay if you don't go out. You are socially anxious, so you don't have to do it. Or you've got this problem, so you should act this way. And it's okay if you do. It's not encouraging you to get better. It's encouraging you to basically get worse. Of course, even if you have a verified, chemical imbalance, you need to try to harness that. Try to harness that into something beautiful and something that works for the glory of God and not against you in every aspect. Bipolar. I have so many bipolar friends, and I know some of you listening are bipolar too, and so many family. It is awful because it just, sometimes you don't even feel like it's even you. You're just kind of riding the wave or riding the crash of whatever flood of endorphins and chemicals go through your brain. So when you're told, oh, well, you're bipolar and it's fine, then you're just like, well, I'm bipolar, so I can be addicted. I can just keep drinking because, my mind's just going to not let me have the willpower to get off of the stuff anyway. So, or I'm just going to keep sleeping around with everybody because I've got an excuse. I'll just blame it on my bipolar if I get caught. It puts you in that mindset. It lets you play the victim. Please, I know it's the easy, and it's what this country has become. But when you play the victim in any situation, you are hurting only yourself. So, there's so many things that like I said, I justified just sitting at home and really, I was probably pushing my wife farther away and making her life miserable because then she couldn't go and do anything fun, or else she had to go out with herself, by herself, or with somebody else to do something fun just because I was in pain, but I could have done it. I just had to get over my social anxiety, which also made my pain worse. But now, the pain keeps me from doing a lot of things still. But I try to go and do as much as I possibly can, just live my life as much as I can for God now. Everything I do, I try to incorporate some kind of lesson for myself or for someone else. I'll learn things from what I do. But I know I have so many undiagnosed, mental disorders in my own life. Excuse me, I got something in my throat now. I have so many undiagnosed mental disorders. And honestly, it is something that I've definitely used for excuses before. And I know so many people who constantly are using the excuse. Yes, you've got it worse dealing with that stuff, but you have to look at how you have it better. And here's how you have it better. Spiritually, you are gifted if you have something like bipolar. Or even if you have, even something as serious as schizophrenia. You are gifted to see beyond what the average human can see. Now, this gets you into the realm of demons as well, and darkness. Because if your mind can open up to the light, it can open up to the dark. But your mind can open up to God so easily. And when your mind opens up to God, you become a vessel. You become one of His greatest warriors. It is miraculous what happens. So I just want to encourage all my friends who are dealing with mental illness. Please make sure, first of all, if you've got a psychologist or a psychiatrist who doesn't seem to care about getting to the root of your problems, they're just like, oh yeah, you're bipolar, here, take these meds. Or here, oh yeah, you got anxiety, here, have at it. Something happens, we'll just switch them up, we'll just jack up your medicine. Try to find someone, it doesn't even have to be a psychologist. Try to find someone, or try to do it yourself if you can. Sit down and write down where your fears started. In fact, this is a good practice for everyone. If you're scared of something, first of all, you have to identify that fear. And that includes anxieties and stuff like that. Try to find where it came from. Trace it back to, why are you scared of spiders? Why are you scared of the dark? Why are you scared of... If it's an irrational fear, then that's one thing that can help you overcome it. You're like, look, I have no basis for being scared about these things. If you're scared of spiders, get a little non-venomous spider and let it crawl across your hand. Challenge your fears. Overcome them. Because they are stealing your joy, just like that bully is stealing the joy from my daughter. They are causing so much grief in your life. And I guarantee you, if you can just shift your mindset, start thinking of something funny every time. If you think of, if somebody's bullied you or if somebody's abused you, start think of a funny cat video or dog or horse. My daughter likes the when the horse do their teeth thing. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I told her to think of that every time she thinks of that bully. Every single time. Also, try the relaxation, breathing, meditation type exercises. And no, it doesn't mean you're becoming a Buddhist or Hindu or something. They are very valuable for calming yourself. And when you get to that calm state, because even the Bible talks about getting into that meditative state. They said, go and meditate, when they talk about prayer sometimes. That meditative state is where your mind is free. And when your mind is free, you can see the messages from God and you can feel the messages from God. It's going to be always in a different way. You'll get that intuition of what He's trying to tell you, where He's trying to guide you to. Okay, that's enough for now. I'm going to probably try to do another video today because it's the first day where I can actually get out here and it's not too horrible. It's only in the high 80s today. Wow. That is a relief. Still high humidity, but you know, it seems like it's so much cooler to me. I love you all. We'll talk to you soon.